What is up, everybody? So we're continuing to look at what was being printed in the press at the time of Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey's arrest and what was being printed at the time their trial was going on. Now, this first article is from the Madison Capital Times and it is from April 1st, 2006. It continues to talk about how Brendan Dassey was forced to confess. Investigators coerced Steven Avery's nephew into telling them the two raped, murdered, and burned a young photographer, Avery said Friday in his first public comments since authorities said his 16-year-old nephew confessed to the crimes. In a phone interview from the Calumet County Jail, Steven Avery told the Associated Press that Brendan Dassey's statements to investigators about the murders are not true, and Dassey is not very smart. He said the nephew commonly plays Game Boy all day. He's 16 years old, and with the detective it doesn't take much to coerce him to say that stuff. He said, you figure he can't even cut up a deer, he can't even do none of that. So he's talking about how Steven Avery, I mentioned this in the last video, but I'm going to mention this every single time it comes up because to me it's the worst part of the case, in my opinion, of what they did. Sure, what happened to Steven Avery is also horrible, but what happened to a 16-year-old boy with a low IQ, what they did to get somebody else, what they did to Brendan Dassey is unforgivable. It's absolutely disgusting, and I'm going to bring it and scream it from the rooftops, scream it from the mountaintops every single time it comes up, because everybody needs to know what they did to Brendan Dassey. Brendan Dassey's lawyer, Len Kaczynski, says he's likely to seek to have Brendan Dassey's statements to investigators thrown out. Calumet County Sheriff Jerry Pagel said investigators followed proper procedure and videotaped the entire interview. I'm going to assume that the interview wasn't yet released because I guess he still backs it up and says that it was done properly. But man, anyone with eyes and ears can see that it was not, in my opinion. I find it very interesting that Steven Avery has formed his opinion without having viewed the tape. Well, it looked like, at least in this particular point in time, Steven Avery could predict the future, or he knew what these investigators were capable of. He knew that they didn't do it, and this is exactly the type of thing that they would do to get Brendan Dassey to confess. Avery, a father of four who is engaged, said he's never raped or murdered anyone and gets choked up when he sees murders on television. I help people, I don't destroy people, he said. Somebody needs help, I'll help them. I'll do without so I can help people. This next article is from April 14th, 2006. It is from the Madison, Wisconsin State Journal, and the headline reads, "No hearing on new Avery charges. Judge turns down defendant's request." A judge ruled Thursday that another preliminary hearing is not needed for the additional charges filed in the murder and mutilation case against Steven Avery. Manitowoc Judge Patrick Willis rejected Steven Avery's request for a hearing, ruling the new charges that include rape and kidnapping are closely related in time and place to the evidence presented at Steven Avery's first preliminary hearing on homicide and mutilation charges. Willis set May 3rd, 2006 for Avery to return to court to enter a plea to the latest charges. Steven Avery's attorney, Dean Strang, told the judge he would be appealing the ruling to the state appeals court. If the appellate court accepts the case, it could delay the prosecution of the case. The stakes are very high, Dean Strang said. During a preliminary hearing, prosecutors presented evidence to try to convince a judge that a crime was committed. Calumet County District Attorney Ken Kratch, the special prosecutor in the case, had contended another preliminary hearing wasn't needed because the new charges were part of the same course of conduct related to the original charges. The judge agreed. All of the alleged crimes involved the same victim, the judge said, and the location of the crimes, the times they took place, the witnesses involved, the evidence gathered, and the motive are all closely related based on the charges detailed in the criminal complaint filed against Steven Avery. That's what the judge said. The new charges clearly meet the test that the Supreme Court has established. The judge said, it is difficult to imagine how additional charges could be more closely related to the original charges in this case than they are. The state is permitted to add new charges. This next article is from April 20th, 2006, and it also talks about how Brendan Dassey was tricked into confessing. A teenager accused His uncle of raping and killing a 25-year-old woman was tricked into giving a detailed confession, and his statements should be tossed out as evidence, his lawyer said Wednesday after filing a motion to suppress the statements. This is from the Janesville Gazette, by the way. Brendan Dassey, 16, and his uncle Steven Avery are awaiting trial on charges in the death of Teresa Halbach. Brendan Dassey's lawyer, Len Kaczynski, said he filed a motion Wednesday in Manitowoc County Court seeking to have his client's audio-taped interview on February 27th and videotaped interview March 1st ruled out as evidence. Authorities have said the March 1st interview included the first account of how the crime was committed. Dassey was then arrested and charged with being party to first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and sexual assault with the use of a dangerous weapon. Len Kaczynski contended Brendan Dassey's statements were obtained in violation of his rights. He said the investigators promised they would help Dassey if he would give a detailed account of the crime, and then went to the point of telling him it would be okay if he participated in the murder. Man, those videos are some of the hardest things you will ever watch, in my opinion. A lot of it's on YouTube. Some of it's in Making a Murderer. Go check it out. It is extremely hard to watch. If you've never seen those interrogation videos of Brendan Dassey and you have any doubts that he's guilty, watching those videos will erase any doubt from your mind that he had anything to do with this. The next one is from April 26, 2006. It states, Steven Avery's lawyer requests trial delay over DNA. The lawyer for Steven Avery says DNA from Teresa Halbach was not found on shackles alleged to have been used to restrain her when she was raped and killed last Halloween. Attorney Dean Strang commented in a motion asking for his client's trial to be delayed and questioning the statements of Avery's 16-year-old nephew, Brendan Dassey, who was charged with participating in the killing. Dean Strang said DNA from 2 people was found on the leg irons and handcuffs seized from Avery's residence, but the genetic material did not match Teresa Halbach. So there was DNA on these shackles and leg irons that Steven Avery had, but, it wasn't Teresa Halbach's because, she was never in Steven Avery's bedroom. Just more evidence pointing to the fact that none of this actually happened. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments below. I hope you're having a good day, and I will see you again soon.